We have Rob Dunn, our CEO, and we have Jeff Moskowitz, our Senior VP and head of our Israel office. And we have Monty Kness, and he is our VP of operations. And welcome, gentlemen.
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
And so we just put out a press release a couple days ago and want to go over it just to give our shareholders, our supporters, those who are praying for us, a little bit more understanding of where we are, and let them see our faces and just see that, hey, we're pushing this, we're working despite a lot of obstacles that have happened in Israel recently. But we went over in this PR a lot of what has happened since last September, all the way up until last week. And so I thought, can we explain this process a little bit more, the scheduling of the committees, the people involved, and really how the war in Israel has affected a lot of this? And maybe we could start with Jeff there in Israel to give us that perspective.
Okay. I like starting at the end and then working backwards. So there's a supervisory committee that was appointed, and for onshore drilling, exploration, operations, they appoint a supervisory committee made up of, as was said in the press release, of several government authorities, of our neighbors out there, of the county, et cetera, to make sure that we abide by the laws, specifically environment, and et cetera. So there's a chairman of the committee, and in our case, it's from the Ministry of Energy. We've worked with him very closely since 2016, actually. So he knows our operations very well, and he sends out the invite. Okay, so that's normal circumstances, and that's how it's done logistically. But before you have the supervisory committee for the date or proposed dates, you got to prepare yourself in many aspects. The first thing is that obviously we prepare a PowerPoint presentation, and because that's how we're going to explain our operations, explain everything that may concern them, whether it be environmental, water, etc. And that's with our operational. Monty's in charge of that, and then it goes through the world, to all our consultants, service providers. And you got to be very careful, because you don't want too much, because you don't want too much feedback there at the meeting. On the other hand, you want things also to give them. If we were very transparent, we've always been transparent, and they know us. So that's number one. Number two, we have to physically prepare the site. And now what's very good, and it's not lucky, there's no luck involved in this, is we know their comments already, what their concerns are. And I'm not saying it offhand in a condescending way, because they do have legitimate concerns. And this is our third actually production test. Second, that's very, very similar to the MJ2. It's very similar, at least in the materials that we're using and everything else. But you have to prepare the site, so they want to know where the HTP, they want to know that everything is protected. They want to see the pit, they want to see the water, what level the water is, because we have pits there for removable of cuttings, and also the mud that goes through, and the liquid. We're obligated that it doesn't rise, more than this. It actually has to be lower than a certain level. We had, thank God, very good rain, very nice winter, and everything as such. And we take that into account. So there are a lot of things that we prepare the site, and that was done. And kudos to everyone that from the.
So they're really looking at it from a place of safety for Israel, for the environmental impact that it is, for the water. They're more making sure, once again, even though we've done this many times, that all of that is that their concerns are put to rest? Would you say it, you know, in a shorthand, that's what this was?
The
Yeah, and
meeting?
if I can jump in here just
Yeah.
real quick, Jeff.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
Israel's no different than any other country in the fact that they got rules and regulations and environmental agencies. And obviously with the green movement worldwide, there is a heightened focus on environmental protocols and regulations, and they want to make sure that our plan stays within their guidelines and their rules, that we can protect the environment, that we have mitigated all potential risks of leaks or spills or fires or anything that could cause damage to either the ground or the water or the air. So that's the primary concern of this latest supervisory committee meeting, and in conjunction with that, our job plan needs to address each of those concerns. And that was what we went through last week, was how are we going to mitigate any potential hazards or pitfalls that could be encountered as we re-enter MJ01.
Okay, and so in planning for this committee, and how did the war really affect putting all this together and actually scheduling this?
I know you said not to talk too much, but I just want to continue. Rob, don't laugh, okay? But there are specific matters that are really affect this area. We're in a county, similar to the county. That's the way it's broken up. Areas here. We're in a county called Spring Valley, and I hope all of our shareholders will come and visit, and they'll see their minds. It's mind-boggling. It's just so beautiful right now because the green and the country. But what you do see is a lot of water, and you don't necessarily associate water with Israel. And we're under, our areas, the aquifers. And that's what they're very, 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 I can go on varies another 30 times, concerned about, and legitimately. We have answers for all of that. But I'll give you a specific example what we had to do for this supervisory committee, just to allow for the members to come and visit. Okay, and this has nothing to do, I'm saying, again, this is not, we'll get to the war, but, they want to check the water. We've been on the site for several years. And so we have actually an MJ1, and we've actually mentioned it many times. We have a water monitoring well. And so what we had to do is we had to take out water from the MJ1 well, and it's being, whatever, X amount of cubes of water. And afterwards, once that water is removed, then they take samples, okay? And it's not only the water authority, it's also, for example, the Geological Institute, which right now they came to the site. We had to arrange all that, and okay, a lot of logistics. And this is their concern. This is one of their major, concerns and everything. Okay, I'll just go on. So we discussed water. There's another item that that's very important, and that is the zoning. We can go on for hours about that, but
and zoning is in conjunction with the kibbutzes that are nearby, that the pad site is on and adjacent to, correct? Is
correct.
that the concerns?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And we at all times we had to receive permission from the supervisory committee. Their authority is from the district committee that allows us to operate, because this is all agricultural land, where we are right now, owned by the sublet by the kibbutzim. And one of the things that so this is agricultural land, and we have a different use, right? Obviously, we're drilling coal. So, and what made it very different in our different, yeah. A lot of times in Zion we create the box or whatever it may be, and in this case, it was hard for them to understand, but at the end they did. That we're under the auspices of our MJ2 zoning. In any event, so then you go through many officials there, whether it be the the legal advisor to the district community, to their architect. There's a lot behind. What I'm just trying to say is there's a lot behind when we put in 3 lines in our, or 3 words in our press release. It's ongoing. We're I know we're in touch all the time. The Dallas office in Israel, that's going on here. So this is notwithstanding the war. This is something that has to be taken care of. And you can continue on. There's Land Authority because they own the land and everything. But there's a limit to how much we can keep going on. Now, your specific question, with regard to the war. So how does it affect? And then and then we'll look at the 180 degrees the other side of that. But on one hand, we definitely are on a war setting. I mean, the numbers are at the time, from 7th of October, let's say the first 2 weeks, 360,000 men and women were conscripted into the army from all walks of life. And I'll give you an example. Personally, my son was called up on 7th of October in the morning, and he was he has a job, normal, he works in high tech, whatever it may be. He was there for 3 months, got out, he was down, whatever, and he got out for 2-3 weeks. Boom, he's back in for 2 months again now, and he's not, it's not, he's a very unique, special case. That's what's happening here in this country right now. Specifically, here we have in our office our geologist, great geologist, Nadav, and he was called in and going into how it's very hard to set dates for anything, right? So it was a joke already. A joke for us is that he would say, "Okay, Jeff, I'm getting out," and then I knew the call would come. On a few days later, no, it's put off. It's put off. This is going on for a month and a half. So this is our geologist now, right? Now, this is happening with all the government offices. So if I have to work with the MOE, the Ministry of Energy, there's a specific individual there that's an engineer that is aware of our operations and everything as such. And again, even for preparation of this meeting, the supervisory committee, he's called in. He was, and he's an officer.
When you say called in, he's called to the war front or to
absolutely.
the reserves. Okay,
absolutely. Be up north.
Yeah, we have our geologist called in. We have your son. We have people within the ministry and the supervisory committee, and I just know how much that just affected even the conversation. I would often, speak with Rob here at the office, what's happening next and what's happening. And he kind of reflects it's very difficult to put that together. Now, how would you see that, Rob, maybe as a CEO trying to move this forward, trying to push this forward? I just see that you're trying to push it all the time. But to watch this and the difficulty of this last season.
That's a great question, Andrew. The biggest thing with it is to continue to move by faith on this. I mean, obviously, Israeli citizens are on a war footing. The country's on a war footing. You have to be nimble on this, and you have to be understanding that it may not be as regimented as we see here in Texas or the U.S. It's very dynamic, and when you have the amount of reservists that are based from the government entities, it's a daily, hourly, minutely change that you have to be fairly nimble on your feet on. And I think Jeff has done an outstanding job. Monty's done an outstanding job of, looking at this at a 360-degree view and trying to find any opportunity within that window to be able to bring this in. And, with the ministry, they really do appreciate Zion's commitment to the country. And they've gone leaps and bounds to turn around and open opportunities when they see fit. And it's a fine line that you have to walk. Jeff has his ear down to the ground 24/7, and any opportunity we get, we'll go ahead and execute it. And they, the ministries have worked with us on all fronts, the kibbutzim, Stedyahu, Teretz V, all the areas that we work in the Spring Valley, they've been very accommodating, understanding for us. And it's, as far as planning, we couldn't ask for better service providers because they're flexible. Some of these contractors have worked in areas that are in conflict. So they're not adverse to coming in and working in Israel. I mean, the location we're at is an extremely safe location. We're right on the Jordan border. You can see Jordan from where we're at. Like Jeff said, it's a beautiful, beautiful area, and we cannot wait to have the shareholders come out to the location. And we're going to get there. The ministry is working with us, and we're going to continue to be nimble. It's you have to navigate this by faith. That's the bottom line.
Right. And so a lot of this, I mean, just getting this work plan forward. So I've heard a lot of questions. Okay, so what is this work plan? What does that entail?
Hold on, Andrew, you're not getting off so easy. So hold on 1 second. 1 second. So we talked about a war footing, and Monty's being very patient, quietly suffering for me, for me speaking so much. But I want to hear, we didn't prepare this question or anything as such. And, we talked about a war footing, a country that's, you read a newspaper. I mean, you'd think that's the only thing that's happening in the world or anything like that. Monty, how did you feel? Did you feel, we had the conversations between us. I mean, did you see a country in a war footing?
Well, first of all, the first thing I noticed was the airplane from Cyprus into Tel Aviv. And when we landed, the pilots, made some announcements, and there was some reservists on board. And, they got a standing ovation on the airplane. And the unity in Israel is, you can feel it. It's a completely different environment. But to answer Jeffrey's question there, you did not feel like you were inside of a war zone inside of Israel. But you did have a very strong sense of camaraderie amongst the Israeli people. I did feel that. But it felt very safe. It felt business as usual. Yeah, I mean, those were the instincts and feelings that I had in the 3 days that I was there.
It's telling, because Israel is open for business. The bottom line, they're open for business, and it's a remarkable country. It always will be. And just like Monty said, and Jeff, kind of cornered Monty into the question is, Israel is open for business. I mean, they're going to do everything they can to attract foreign workers, etc. I mean, they have issues with the reservists being called up, not being able to get crops off. I think, some people may have seen it in the media where ranchers from Montana, etc., have come into Israel to help them with crops. So, it's a global initiative to continue to help the state of Israel 100%. We're committed to it. It looks like, some of the international carriers are loosening their restrictions. They're going to start coming into Israel, which is great. I mean, it's, that's one of the logistical challenges that we will face, is very limited ports of departure from Europe in with the national flag carrier of Israel. And that's by design right now, but it appears that major US carriers are going to be coming in. So that's telling that they're committed to Israel, and, they know that business is open, and we're going to move forward like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get that a lot of questions. It's like, hey, could I go out there? And I'm like, hey, yeah. I mean, there's flights that go out there right now. El Al is the main carrier. So, yeah. Now the work plan. We have to present this work plan to Israel. So what? Maybe give us just a very high level of what this work plan entails. Monty?
I'll kick off a little bit, and then I'll let Monty kind of get a little bit more granular. We'll start at 50,000 foot and take it down to 40,000 foot. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
So essentially a work plan is a document from start to finish on what our proposal is with the Ministry of Energy and our operations. It's very different than doing business here stateside, where you have your lease, you get going. We have to walk through every single step that we're going to be doing on the project, why we want to do the project. There's just a lot of levels within the work plan. It's a large document. That document is submitted to the Ministry of Energy. The Ministry of Energy then sources that to a third-party consulting company that historically is in the UK. They'll go through that document with a fine-tooth comb. They'll have any kind of questions when their engineers review it. It'll come back to the Ministry of Energy. They will review the questions that the third-party companies looked at, and then that'll migrate back to us, and we'll clarify any of the questions on it. So it's a lengthy exercise, and it's for Israel to safeguard that we're going to do it right. And the work plan is very tedious. It requires a lot of our service providers, some outside contractors for ourselves and consultants to go through. And it's a lot of layers with it. So that being said, I'll kind of pass it off to Monty, and you can maybe just highlight some of the steps.
Yeah, so it basically is a instruction manual on how we're going to operate from beginning to end. So it's a step-by-step process. When we get on location, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And these are the safeguards in place to make sure that we've mitigated any potential risk or hazard or environmental concern. So there's, like I mentioned earlier, there are rules and regulations. There can be some restrictions placed on us, and they want to see that our operating plan falls within the scope of those rules and regulations. And if they have any questions or concerns, or for example, if we did encounter natural gas, and we flared it off, what impact does that have? How do we do it? How long could the flare stack be operational? Is there environmental concerns associated with that? So you're not only going through what you're anticipating the work to be done looks like, you're also having to anticipate any potential what if type scenario. And so there's a bunch of different, there's 15 different agencies represented or something like that, 15 different people there. Each of them have a different opinion, and not all of them are oil and gas or drillers or familiar with the type of work that we're doing. So they're looking at it from each of their scopes, and they'll all have questions and concerns, and we just have to address that through the work plan so it's documented, and it can be verified and it can be followed up on. So that's what we did. It's a step-by-step and timeline of what we're going to do from A to Z.
Monty brought up a really good point there. It really is the instruction manual for what we're going to do, what we're going to apply, resource-wise, technology-wise, etc. So there is a level of proprietary detail within those documents that, obviously the government's the custodian of the document. It belongs to the government after we submit it. And, it's very detailed information that we typically will have a non-disclosure agreement with the third-party service provider, etc. on this, so we can't have items disclosed without, within the scope of the company. I mean, we don't want any of the regional groups that are within Israel having the ability to pull our work plan off the ministry's website, anything like that. So it's they are the custodians of the end document, the ministries, and along with the supervisory committee, these are impactful government agencies that realize that there's a lot of cost involved setting up your work plan, and there's a lot of details that we don't want to disclose to the potential competitors within the region. I mean, we have some pretty sharp engineering groups that we work with, and they believe in the vision of Zion, and
So we're
they're
not
100% committed. So
we're not just protecting or keeping safe our plans, but some of our service providers, we have some agreements with them that we can't just publicly put out every detail about that. Correct?
correct. So if there's specialized items that are required for it, we're very vanilla when we go out to bid on it. And that's by design. We we don't want to be able to link A to B on certain things. And that's kind of the oil and gas industry, if you rewind back 50, 60 years, there used to be people in a pickup truck with binoculars that would count the amount of drill string that goes down a hole. And it was pretty common practice in North America. And then you would just replicate the same thing if you had a license or a block that was right next to you. Now, if people, they have a general understanding of how deep you're going, etc. But what they don't have is your design of completion and or reentry. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And that's something that we keep pretty close to our chest on. It's similar to the 3D data set. I know that there's a lot of people love to see the 3D data set, but that's keeping these items safeguarded within the organization is a net benefit to the shareholders, because we don't want to disclose this to the public and allowing our competitors or anybody else to potentially make a move on a license close to us or technology that they don't have access to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, there's we've mentioned, cutting edge technologies, innovative stimulation methods. And again, without getting into all the detail of that, why are we saying that? What makes that exciting for us?
Yeah, I think in order to answer that question, Andrew, it's better if we go back in time and kind of get a brief history of the oil and gas industry, and especially when it comes to exploration. When oil was first discovered, it was literally bubbling out of the ground. You could see it, you could step on it, you could pick it up with your hands. And once they realized that it had commercial use, those easy to find oil deposits were quickly used up. So they had to come up with other techniques, and eventually they came up with, deep drilling, where they would drill a hole into an oil reserve. And under the conventional well, the oil that was returned was only the oil that was pushed out by the formation. So if you remember during our investor meeting last summer, I kind of talked about the Coke can. If you shake the Coke can and you open it up and it sprays out. Well, the same applies to the amount of oil that these conventional wells would get. They basically would get all the oil that the formation would push back, or when you open that can of Coke, the only oil that was recoverable was what spewed out of the top.
Yeah,
oil's,
we all had that experience as a kid. We shake the can, open it up, it spews out, Coke goes everywhere. You try to sip it off, but there's still a lot of Coke left in the can.
Still a lot of Coke in the can. And up until the last 30 years, that was it. Once the formation stopped pushing out oil, they just capped it off. And 40, 50, 60% of the oil remained downhole. And oil companies are for-profit companies, and they're always taking the lowest hanging fruit. But now that low hanging fruit is starting to dry up. And they had to come up with technologies on how to get all the oil or a greater percentage of the oil out. And so you had a big boom in the fracking industry in the last 25 years, and in horizontal drilling. Okay. So all of that technology was designed to recapture or gain more oil from the reservoir. But as time has gone on and oil has become more and more scarce, we're now having to explore harder and more difficult areas where before the oil companies would just bypass it. There's an easier place, there's an easier location. It's faster drilling, it's cheaper to drill. But those places as well are starting to dry up. So companies, and not only that, but the green movement, you know, hydraulic fracturing has a bad stigma to it. So companies are having to overcome and adapt and create new technologies in order to recover oil in otherwise unrecoverable locations. And in the last, Rob could probably answer this, in just the last 5 years, some of these technologies have come out which are allowing carbon capture from low porosity, low permeability rock reservoirs. And you know, before they were using, you know, highly hazardous chemicals. They were using sand. Sand is very heavy and very dense, and so it can't travel through low porosity and low permeability rock. And just in the last few years, they've uncovered environmentally friendly ways where they can stimulate wells without the stigmas and the hazards that were there, you know, the last 20-25 years. And that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to exploit. All the stuff that we're using is environmentally friendly. It's naturally occurring substances, and it's able to work its way through in rocks and the reservoir that past companies would have just said, this ain't worth our time. We're going to go somewhere that's easier and cheaper to do. So that's kind of in a nutshell. It is new. It is
So really,
it is exciting, and the purpose of it is to get to where they've never been able to get to before.
and really the technology difference, I heard somebody mention, it's basically, you know, imagine, you know, in the 80s, the phone technology versus the technology of the cell phone and smartphones of today. Like just that distance has also been reflected within the oil and gas community. With stimulation
And just like the microchips, you know, the computing power, you know, is now down into something the size of your pinky fingernail. Well, the same with some of this drilling technology. You know, the footprint is drastically reduced. The impact on the environment is drastically reduced. The byproduct is environmentally safe. It's and that's all good, and that's all inside of what Israel requires, which they didn't have that 6 years ago when we were on MJ1 the first time. Had we had it, you know, we could have had a completely different result. And that's why we're so excited about being able to try this here, because if it's going to work, this is the stuff that's going to give us our opportunity to crack the enigma, so to speak. So
you know, it's been a long telling problem within the industry, you know, when you're doing secondary and tertiary recovery, and you know, there was methods, and the methods are still deployed today when we see it out in parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado, and Pennsylvania, etc. You know, with just the regular hydraulic fracturing where you run the water, it breaks the rock, the sand is put in there as a proppant to keep the rock open to allow a migratory path for the hydrocarbon. You have the problem's always been there, and it's how do we modify the matrix? You know, that's what we call it, the composition of the rock. How do you modify that matrix of rock in order to give it an avenue to allow the hydrocarbon to come up? Hydrocarbon is pretty lazy. It's going to take the path of least resistance and come to the surface. You know, there is the testing that we've done. We have very, very, very tight formation. And, you know, historically you could hit it with this technology or that technology and try to break the matrix and allow it to flow. Where when you're working in some areas that are very sensitive to fracturing and, you know, hydraulic fracturing, all that, it's tough. You know, you see like Bulgaria, Germany, France, a lot of countries just flat out ban it. You know, so there's been advances in technology, like Monty said, you know, there's a component within the technology that we look at that's pretty much readily available, it occurs naturally, and we've seen the test, we've seen the analogs with us in very tight formations, and it works well. And I think this, you know, obviously MJ1 is a fantastic candidate for it, because, you know, we did have hydrocarbon that was captured in it, but, you know, looking at this, we believe that there was a little bit of a trap that won't allow us to produce it now with this technology. We know that this has the potential to unlock it. I mean, that's the reality of it. So, you know, like Monty said, this is a prime candidate for it, and this has great potential for us.
Andrew,
So, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I'm raising my hand like Nicholas. Um, again, you know, so I touch upon the personal, and I think also on the general. I personally have been very blessed to work with Rob and Monty. Just a great team, great people to work with, very intelligent, you can hear it right now. I mean, these are the oil and gas guys, but even more so, I mean, it's portrayed itself, and I don't know, I think Rob, you know, we've been together 2019. Zion, I think our shareholders have super benefited from you know, these two gentlemen. In the time that they've been here, Zion has just off the top of my head, you know, I'm just thinking out loud, you know, new techniques and technology that has never been tried or used in Israel, whether it be the 3D, okay, I'm talking about on the scale that, you know, that we use and the technology that we use, 3D seismic, whether it be drilling while casing, which, you know, just allowed us to be where we are now. I mean, any other company, you can say that. Any other onshore drilling company in Israel would have been stuck in the middle of the drilling, and that's it. And now you have the new technique that, you know, that we're using now, which we use in MJ2. So and you know, you can't belittle this. This is the industry, they know it. The ministry know it, and they appreciate it. And you know, this again goes to, you know, our shareholders, that they should understand we have very, very, very good name in Israel. For many reasons, you know, we're transparent, we do what we say. And here you see cutting, you know, edge technologies introduced into Israel. So just wanted to add that in.
Thank you, Jeff. You know, another aspect, you know, with shareholders that we often get, and I know that Rob, you know, will often, you know, because he's always pushing, you know, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done. So I'm asking him, okay, so we're being asked about timelines, general mobilization dates, and just the constant challenge that is to nail that down. And I know in the past we've given general times and dates and so on, and just reality faces us and hits us despite all the pushing, all the aspect to try to move it forward. So I guess my question isn't so much like, give me a time, it's more of what affects these timelines? What do you see that normally has that our shareholders can better understand? Why we say, you know, this quarter, and then it gets, you know, it maybe gets pushed back to the end of that quarter, or, you know, into the next quarter.
Understandable. It's difficult for myself because, you know, we have to plan. You know, you normally have a backup plan, and you know, we go from plan A to plan B, we go from plan A to plan Z on certain things. And the reality of it is we deal with, you know, the state of Israel does not have any indigenous service providers. So we have to source service providers from abroad, from Eastern Europe, Turkey, etc. Even the United States, we service providers for packers or whatever. So you have a timeline that automatically is built within 30 days to be able to mobilize something. from a country coming in. And then, you know, we normally work with the Ministry of Transportation in Israel to give them specs of equipment, etc. They have to approve whether or not it can be transported over road or whatnot. So there's a level that you have in there that we're not accustomed to on a regular basis if we're just looking outside of the state of Israel. If we're working in a country that does have a designated service provider base. You know, you can go anywhere in Texas, Oklahoma, and you can either walk into the place and say, I need a vac truck or I need this. Okay, we'll send it there in 2 hours. So, you know, in fairness, where we say that we're going to look at quarter one or quarter two or quarter three, it's really, you know, all hands on deck within the Zion group here, working with their service providers, seeing if they can alter their schedules in order to free up an asset that can come into the country. It's a very delicate ballet that we have to work with, and just because of the fact that, you know, your service providers are obviously in business to be in business, and they're working with additional clients. So if you have a specialized piece of equipment and it's on a contract for them, that may push our timeline out. You know, if that equipment was delayed, there was an error on the other client's well site, or stuck in hole or whatever, that has a trickle down effect to our operations. So even though we secure and procure that service provider and we anticipate a mobilization date of X, it may end up in Y, and that's the nature of the business. If you have an overly saturated service provider database within the country that you're working in, you can fill those voids very quickly. But as far as us having to bring 99.99% of the items from abroad into Israel, it's tough. You know, we have commitments that it's a pay to play system. I mean, if you execute a mobilization with a service provider, you come in and you're delayed because a permit didn't get approved in time, there's an additional cost borne to us. And we'll work with service providers, they'll work with us to an extent, but keep in mind that you pulled an asset of their company off the market to come in. So there's a lot of hurdles that we go through. I think as we work hand in hand with the ministry, like Jeff said, and, you know, we provide them a lot of details on technologies, and these go into their case studies. You know, there'll be more PhDs wrote from the contributions Zion has given the Ministry of Energy than you've ever seen. I mean, there's, you know, the data sets that we have, the analogs, the core samples, the rocks, etc. I mean, these are so beneficial to the Ministry of Energy that they work with us, and they work with us well, where they may be able to put pressure on another ministry to say, hey, look, guys, you know, we're waiting on you, you know, pick your feet up and let's go. I would love to be more granular on the timelines. You know, what I don't want to do is overcommit and under deliver on certain things. So we do have to keep it fairly broad, just in order to absorb any shock that we'll have if something comes in, it's delayed. But, you know, I think over the last 4 years, the ministry has really worked with us. The Ministry of Transportation's worked with us. The Ministry of Environment's worked with us, you know, because we present a lot of this stuff well in advance to give them a heads up. Like Monty said, you're going to have some people within those ministries that will have questions that may kind of slow something down. And it's just a matter of educating them on the process or why we're doing certain things. And 95% of the time that'll take care of it. The other 5% is they just didn't have time to get to it, and they realize the pressure behind it, they get to it, and it's solved. But when you have these, they have inherent delays in our operation, and it's, you know,
I love it. As frustrated it is maybe for those on the outside waiting and saying, you know, from an inside perspective, what I love to hear, and I often talk with shareholders, is just the amount of small little miracles that this worked out and this happened to allow us to move forward. And that's what just gives us so much hope internally of what, that this is not our company. Rob says that over and over. This is
100%.
our company. This is the Lord's company. And so, and I think we see that. What's the phrase, Jeff? In order to believe in Israel, you have to believe in miracles. That's kind of the idea. Like, I think we see that with Zion Oil and Gas. And I know that Monty's constantly lining up and pushing out, lining up and pushing out. And there's a lot of that process that Monty just, and I try to explain to shareholders all the time, because they're like, well, how much does it take, like, say in Texas, to do XYZ? And I'm like, I could tell you that, or I could look it up, or what have you, but you have to understand, this is not any kind of comparison that we can make that has any kind of helpful knowledge that will hand over to you to give you that information. This is a completely apples and oranges comparison as far as.
For example, Andrew, if you're in Odessa, Texas, and you needed a piece of equipment, they could drive it from down I-10 from Eagle Pass or Eagleford, and it could be there 6-7 hours. If we need something that's not in country already, it's got to be put on a boat and shipped across the Mediterranean, or worse, the Atlantic, if it's coming from the US. So logistically, it's tough. It is why we try to secure all the services, one right after the other. So once we get started, they know that if we meet this timeline, their next piece of equipment has to be on a boat by this date. And, we do get down to that granular level with each of these suppliers. And once we're in operation, I'm talking to them just about every day, giving them operational updates. And so they're ready. But once that piece of equipment gets loaded on a boat, it's on the cash register. So we have to be very careful with not bringing stuff in too soon, or keeping it too late. If we get delayed, we got to be able to push all that stuff off. It's a very hard balancing game. I think we have a lot better opportunity when we get started on this, because we're out of the throes of COVID. COVID was, just threw even more wrenches into the tires, made it extremely hard for scheduling, but we're through that. We're constantly in contact with the suppliers. I think Rob did a good job of saying that, we're not their only customer. So we do have to, squeeze and carve out a time for us. And we're working with that now that we're through this final hurdle with the supervisory committee. We can start narrowing that timeline down. We do still have some logistical issues for personnel getting into the country. We're hoping that flights in and out of Israel start becoming a little easier, because they're very few and far between, and we do have people coming from all over the globe for this operation. But we will get it, and once we get started, we're hoping to be able to, go one right after the other. And in order to do that, we just have to have all of our ducks in a row. The good news is supply chains are starting to work themselves out in the oil and gas industry. We talked a lot about during MJO2, the backlog and the lead times and the lack of inventory. Inventory is starting to be replenished. Our lead times are drastically reduced for, call out items. But, a lot of call out items are cash up front. They won't even start manufacturing until they're paid. And we do have some of those on this next project. So we're not going to spend your money until we're ready to go. And so they're I think our biggest lead time item right now is 6 weeks, which is, way better than it was 2 years ago. We were talking 6-8 months on some stuff.
Right.
So we do have a lot of things going our way. Logistically, if things can calm down a little bit, mainly on personnel transportation, we should be able to start really narrowing it down here in the next few weeks as to when we would like to go if we can.
And that's why we communicate just some of the preparing the financial. I would say this company historically has had a very the manna principle, I guess, is what we've often said internally, is that God provides it when we need it, and we always have enough, and then at the right time we have a little bit extra in preparation for the next step. But that's why we have these unit programs. We have one going now, and just for our shareholders to, so they can participate and have a little bit of a kick with the warrants and so on. Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, before you go into the next point, just want to add to Monty and Rob's points that they raised. Several things that affect. Again, I'm not going to go into specific granular like Rob says, but we have we're here. Again, all the workers pretty well. The professional drilling or whoever it may be, and the service providers, you have to get visas. Let's not forget that. Okay, and that's a process. And in any country, well, except for the states that you let anyone in, but any other country, right? That that's a process, and it takes time. Specifically, if how, again, going back to the war, how does that affect? Well, we're not a country of 360 million people, so when you have people going to reserve in the numbers I talked about, so that specific person might not be there, that you need them to sign off. So, and that's across board for everything. So again, that's a miracle that we are where we are today. And the fact is that there's only one other onshore company that's, it's a small country, everyone, and they're moving very slow. They're way lower than us, but to put it and whatever, no one's moving at the pace that we are. So that's number one. Number two, you have imports. If everything comes in, then it's import. Number three, I'll just give an example. Okay, I think I can share with shareholders because I was pretty well blank page until 2017. It's all been a learning experience. But we had once something coming in from Scotland, and it was very important that it come on time. And lo and behold, they disembarked, and they in Amsterdam. I said, "What's going on? How could that be or anything like that?" Seems like the captain has this prerogative that he can stop for it. That he might have 4 different equipment of 4 different companies. He can decide on whatever. It doesn't make a difference whatever situation you're in. Those are the things we got to deal with. So I wake up every morning and I say, thank God I am not Monty and I have Monty's responsibilities to get everything at the same time through Corona and today in this war fitting. My God.
Yeah, and really what I know, well, my role, your role, everyone's role, there's a lot easier, better, situations as far as work, but this passion to this vision that Zion has is why we're here. And while we'll put up with all of this, whether it be questions or logistical issues or wanting to move forward and having to release it to the Lord, I mean, it's just a constant situation.
I just want to add is that we have given starting from the license, continue on to work programs, and I think we've published it. We've put it out in our reports many times in the past years. We get an extension, and this has been extended, and that and shareholders might be asking what's going on. It's extended because 2 reasons. The ministry understands is that we're not, because there are companies that are just that may use this as an excuse of it, but they know that when it comes to Zion, we've done everything.
Well, I think that may have cut off a little bit. I think you had a little bit of a glitch there, but yeah, we've done everything. And that's what, everything that we could. Just real quick, we're, super quick. Where's our rig? How's it going to be used?
Rig's on location. Everything's fine with the rig. We have our field supervisor, he's out there pretty frequently, you know, just staring at the beautiful piece of equipment. Monty was just there, Jeff was just there, so you know
Yeah.
that there'll be certain components used from the rig for the recompletion project on the MJ01. The rig itself won't have 100% utilization just because we don't need something that powerful for what we're going to be doing. And it's, you know, I'll kind of let Monty get into some more of the details of it, but you know, it's healthy, it looks good, and it'd be great to get the engines fired up again.
The pivotal word there, Andrew, is our rig. You know, if I go back from 2017 and our other wells or everything like that, the trying to arrange that the rig should come at the same time, you know, because that's money. That's a lot of money, you know. But it's our rig, you know, when you have a drilling contractor. Right now, we're the drilling contractor, so that makes all the difference. So, you know, our rig.
Yeah, we'll be using a lot of the systems from the rig for the reentry project. But we don't like Rob said, we don't need the drilling power to do what we're trying to do. So we'll have a small little workover unit coming in as well. And it'll just tie in with our operating systems, mud pits, engines, that sort of stuff. And it'll be,
So if everything lines
more
up
nimble
and-
and smaller. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, if everything lines up, you know, funding, you know, is smooth and everything else, then we're looking at a pretty quick turnaround, you know, potentially with this recompletion. It's not a deep drilling project the way we've done before.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
we're hoping to be able to get this done in, you know, 2 or 3 months from beginning to end, with once boots are on the ground. And you know, we're trying to synchronize. There's 3 different phases that it's going to go through, and you know, we're trying to utilize service providers that can be synchronized, where we're not having to bring in ancillary equipment, so we can just tie everything in together, go down, go up, and be done with it. So,
All right. Well, just real quick, bullets, real quick, Jeff, request for prayers or express appreciation. What would you say?
Both. You know, what can I tell you? Prayers. I can't think of another. Every time we need prayers, but right now we need, you know, in all 360 degrees. You know, so and appreciation. You know, it's hard for me. You know me. It's hard for me to be lost of words, but I'm a loss of words for the gratefulness to our shareholders. You know, standing by us, believing in us, and being a family. You know, part of the Zion. So I thank
Rob?
you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you, Jeff. Rob, real quick, appreciation prayers.
You know, like Jeff said, we, you know, continually 24-hour-a-day prayer just for our brothers and sisters over in the state of Israel. And, you know, it's just, I've been in the industry long enough when I see the support that we have from our shareholders, the sheer amount of challenges, hurdles that we've overcome. And these aren't natural hurdles that we've overcome. And I think it's just testament to whose company it is. And, you know, everything we've asked for, we've been blessed with. And, you know, it's amazing, our shareholder base and the faith that they have. And this is walk by faith. And it's, you know, like, you know, looking forward to the operations, safe operations, and more passage to open to Israel. So keep that in our prayers and put that out to the shareholders for the prayers, because it does go a long way.
Monty?
yeah, I mean, I'm very thankful for the resiliency and the steadfast attitude of not only the Israeli people, but also our shareholders. I think it's one and the same. You know, nobody wants to get started more than I do. Nobody wants to see the results more than we do. So just prayers for that, and just just prayers for the leadership in Israel, that they can remain steadfast in achieving the ultimate mission that they've set out to do. And yeah, just thanks to everybody for the support and patience.
Yeah. Well, and I want to thank all you gentlemen. I know it's very I know we've rescheduled this a couple times, and I just appreciate the time that y'all take to get together to speak to me, so that our shareholders and our supporters can hear it. I know that you're so focused on getting the next milestone done for operations that that it can be difficult to just carve out this time. So again, appreciate it, and just encourage all of our shareholders and supporters to continue to pray, and just know that you can always participate in investing in our operations and in what we're doing in Israel. It's unique. It's a special situation, and I just want to thank all of you. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.